So I was just sitting here scrolling through YouTube when I came across Manga Cowan's favorite person, who did a video on Pokemon Sun and Moon. Long story short, me and my friend Pretty Kitty 97 watched the video. While I don't think it's terrible, it certainly is flawed. My friend, however... yeah.
Irrelevant.
Welcome to Game Theory, where my Alolan form is a sunburnt tourist wearing board shorts and a fanny pack. Hey, it's time for a new Pokemon game, which means it's also time to dig into the ecological sciences to dissect the outlandish shenanigans Nintendo is trying to shove down our faces this time. And let me assure you, shenanigans are indeed afoot in the Alolan archipelago, because Game Freak has made decisions in the Pokemon Sun and Moon games that foretell a tragic future for all the cute, cuddly creatures that you've come to know and love in the series. Decisions that actually mean catastrophic things for the ecology of this tropical paradise. In short, there is a slow poison that was purposely placed in the lore of Pokemon Sun and Moon that practically guarantees that some of your all-time favorite Pokemon go extinct on these islands. You heard that right, Pokemon extinction, an unintended consequence of something that was intentionally programmed into these games.
Now, while he does have evidence to back up his claim, I still find said evidence to be a tad faulty, and I'll be pointing out where and why I feel that way.
Hobgoblins, hobgoblins, what do you do with those hobgoblins?
Anyway, although some may be a bit phoned in, others demonstrate that a lot of thought actually went into these designs and backstory. Case in point, the Alolan Pokedex entry for Donald Trump. I mean, Yungoos. You can tell the difference because Yungoos' hair looks more realistic. Anyway, the Pokedex tells us that despite the fact that Yungoos debuted in Generation 7 with the release of Sun and Moon, it's not actually native to the Alolan region. Yungoos did not originally live in Alola, but was imported from another region. According to Nintendo, Yungoos was introduced to the Alolan region to deal with the exploding Rattata population, which, as anyone who's ever played a Pokemon game before can tell you, Rattata overpopulation is a major problem. Seriously, kill them all, Yungoos, go get them! Unfortunately, introducing Yungoos to Alola didn't curb the Rattata's numbers so much as drive them into the urban areas of the islands and force them to become nocturnal, giving birth to the Alolan variant of Rattata, which is now a dark type. This in turn helps them to survive since Yungoos is active during the day. And how impressive is that? All of that thought just to explain a simple new Pokemon form. I mean, love or hate these games, you gotta hand it to the Pokemon team. They really thought that one through. Except they didn't think it through far enough, because in creating this backstory, Game Freak has actually put a death sentence on thousands of innocent Pokemon across the Alolan Islands. You see, Yungoos being imported into Alola means that it's technically an invasive species. In real life, an invasive species is any living organism, plant or animal that's not native to an ecosystem. And while that may not sound all that threatening, approximately 42% of all endangered species on Earth are on those at-risk lists because of an invasive species that wound up in its part of the world. What happens is that this new invasive species doesn't have natural predators in that part of the world, and as a result, it can breed and spread quickly, taking over the area. And since local plants and animals haven't had to deal with this creature before, they haven't evolved defense mechanisms against it. In just a short amount of time, the invasive species takes over, causing the underprepared local wildlife to go extinct. So yeah, good job, humans. You brought Yungoos to Alola to eat the Rattata adapted and found a way to survive, which means that now you're left with a huge population of Yungoos that have to eat something else and are gonna find it no matter what. After all, as the Pokedex entry says, with its sharp fangs, it will bite anything. It wanders around in a never-ending search for food, which means someone else is on the chomping block. And you know it's gonna be one of those cute little ones.
Later on, you give the real-world history lesson of this poorly thought-out, ill-fated predator-prey relationship. The creatures you list off the mongoose preying on in lieu of the rats were smaller, weaker mammals, insects, reptiles and amphibians, and birds and their eggs. And yet you use a picture of Vulpix as an example of what Yungoos would go after due to Alolan Rattata being nocturnal. Never mind the real world that a fox would most likely prey on a mongoose. Regular and Alolan Vulpix have access to special attacks such as Flamethrower and Icy Wind respectively, so they could fight off an enemy if they had to. Both Vulpix are also capable of using Confuse Ray, so if one was cornered by a pack of Yungoos, or their evolved form of Gumshoe, it is likely that they could confound their predator long enough to get away. But that's just a theory. A Pokemon theory?
Then, knowing that Yungoos prefer to hunt close to the ground and only during the day, I eliminated any Pokemon who were active at night or tended to stay in trees. Lastly, there were a ton of bug Pokemon across all of these routes, but bugs have huge populations, and it would be difficult for Yungoos to really damage the overall numbers of those populations, so I didn't really consider them at risk. In the end, I was left with the following list of Pokemon that will, in the near future, be completely wiped out from the islands by the overpopulation of Yungoos and Gumshoes. Slowpoke, Vullaby, Delibird, and brace yourself because here comes some real fan favorites, Igglybuff, Pichu, and Eevee.
Even though the only way you can encounter Vullaby in the game is when they swoop out the sky to attack you. And here's why I let the entire segment play out. Like how MatPat said he was excluding bug-type Pokemon for being preyed on by Yungoos.
Ha! Let him try.
MatPat said he was also excluding Pokemon that would be encountered in the trees. And yes, I know Vullaby don't appear in tree ambush encounters, but considering you've encountered them in the game when they ambush you from the sky, one could assume they spend a great deal amount of time flying around up there. Also, considering they debuted as the Unova equivalent of the Spearow line, one would presume that a Vullaby would fight back if a Yungoos tried to attack it. Or alternatively, the Vullaby could try and take the Yungoos as prey. And seeing as how he makes decent arguments for the rest of the video, I'll be stopping here. I'm not gonna say MatPat didn't play Sun and Moon, though I do feel he made a misstep using Vulpix as an example of Pokemon the Yungoos would prey on, and might have overlooked that the only way to encounter Vullaby was through an aerial ambush. I always suspected that I might cover MatPat one day, but this video didn't drive me to the brink of insanity or rage the way other commentators have been by MatPat. This has been Night saying thanks for listening, and please share your thoughts with me.
Foxwell, are you done standing on my back yet?